Hey world, this is Justin, and you are tuned to Anywhere the Needle Drops. Welcome back to a regular episode. We are here today with Queer Father. Yes, we've got Queer Father coming into Theory One Studio to sit down with me, Justin, to talk about creating art and music and the intimacy of creating and performing for audiences, especially live audiences. And yeah, lots of fun stuff here. This one just sort of worked out timing-wise. Queer Father doesn't necessarily have any new projects right here, right now on the horizon, but I can't complain about not having a back catalog to go into. There is so much there over on the Bandcamp, so make sure you're checking the show notes and swinging on over to the Queer Father Bandcamp and digging into all of those releases there. You're also going to get a chance to check out a Queer Father song here right after I get done yapping at you, and that's going to be Filthy Fangs. So you'll be able to enjoy that in just a moment. But yeah, this is a fun chat with Queer Father. Seeing them out and about at various shows around the local music scene, and always an epic thing to see. So yeah, just a great entertainer, great musician, all around great person. And we have this fun chat about creation and vulnerability and intimacy in art. So check it out. Queer Father is coming at you. First, hear the song Filthy Fangs. Enjoy. Here's to life.
You thought you were an angel of the kindest kind. Then you walked into a dark room, shrouded in dust. Then you took out your brain, sat it on a melting golden bowl, and off you were into the abyss, shredding up every little bit of your mind like an old receipt. You thought you could never hurt a fly, instead you're hurting hedgehogs, biting folks in the skull. No one else can love you, but I hear you. Shrouded room, taking out your brain, letting him drink it up, and all you were into the abyss, shredding up every little bit of your mind like an old receipt.
Queer Father, welcome to the show. So we've been talking for a little bit, trying to get you on here, and I've seen you out and about. I think I've seen you perform a handful of times at various events. Have you done? I'm trying to think if my memory is correct. I've seen you at Lang Lab. Did you play outdoors? But maybe not. I don't know. I can't remember exactly. So
outdoors. That would have been either what was it? Pride in the Park last year.
Okay.
Or was that last? Oh God, my years are mixed up. 2024.
Okay, yeah. I mean, listen, we're at that point where like all the years just blend together. I don't know how old you are. I know that I'm at an age, and especially with the world as it is, it's just like a mishmash of it's like, oh no, that was last year. It's like, no, that was 4 years ago. But yeah. So at any rate, seeing you play, it's a wonderful time. You were just we just had sound guy Paul in here chatting with us, and Paul was talking about this experience we had that he had at Fringe Fest when you were performing, and there's just this I don't know, this way you just like lock the room onto you. You just like draw everyone's attention, and it's just a wonderful thing. So yeah, it's great to have you here on the show. So
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. I guess let's start with your sound. What do you even call like your sound? Not that it requires a label, but like what? Tell me a little bit about what you're aiming for and what you're creating with your music.
I always kind of describe my stuff as like dark, somewhat folky, like somewhere in the realm of like art pop, kind of. I feel like everything I make is just kind of an amalgamation of all the random influences I've had over the years. So trying to come up with words sometimes is like, this is close enough, I guess.
Yeah. Well, like, speaking of like, what are some of the influences? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you listen to a variety of things, but what are some specific things you listen to, now or growing up or whatever that have created, helped you create the sound that you have?
One big influence, I got into Nico as a teenager, and I was just like so drawn to kind of like her organ drones against her like super cold like monotone voice.
Yeah.
So that was a big influence for me. But that I discovered Tori Amos as a teenager. She was a big influence.
Got it. Yep, for sure.
And then I also grew up. My father was like really into kind of like 60s rock music, while my mom was kind of more into like, vocal divas, Whitney, Mariah, Celine.
Yeah.
So I feel like both of those kind of find a way into my work, especially when it comes to like layering harmonies and stuff like that. So,
yeah. So I would have to imagine, there's the the initial recording phase, but then what does that look like when you're in that production point where you are like doing some layering and stuff, because there is so much going on in your music. Like there's a lot to take in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my favorite part, to be honest. Just laying down the basics is always fun, but getting to that point where I kind of get to put my scientist hat on and just kind of go crazy and say like, oh, what if I put like 50 vocal stacks right here? That's my favorite part, especially because in college I was a music student, so my favorite part was kind of always learning about harmony and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I get to that point where I can really just go to town and layer on whatever I want, that's the sweet spot for me.
Yeah. When you where'd you go to college?
IUSB.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, my day job is at IUSB.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. And I have spent some time haunting those music rooms down in the basement area. That weird little space down there. I had a buddy of mine, Ethan, who also went to IUSB for music, and I am in no way a skilled musician, but we did have a fun like going in there and just like messing around with instruments a couple of times. And so yeah, I walk through that area deliberately every single day to my office, even though I could park elsewhere and not be in the area, but I just love walking through and hearing the students in the rooms doing their things, so
yeah. And if you listen closely, you can hear a music student having breakdown.
Yeah. It's part of the process, right? Yeah. So okay, so IUSB. And was it specifically were you studying more was it just music theory, production? what was the area study for that?
So my degree was just focused on music in general. I had a concentration in music technology, so sort of recording, mixing, those sorts of things. But my instrument was voice, so I spent like 3 years just studying, classical vocal training, and that was tons of fun, getting to sing in a bunch of different languages that I didn't know,
Yeah. So when you are doing the production side of things, when you're getting to that point, are you doing that? Is that something largely that you're doing? Are you collaborating with someone? Do you have someone helping you with production? Does it depend on the project?
It depends on the project, but 90% of the time it's just me.
Okay.
In my apartment, at my desk.
Yeah.
Working away.
Yeah. Do you have a clear vision when you sit down for those sessions of like what you're aiming for, or is it kind of more of an exploration of like what's in here? What are we going to find? Discovery?
A little bit of both. I always kind of go into whatever I'm working on with a very clear vision of like, this is what I want it to sound like. This is like the vibe that's going to have. I usually think of like colors and things like those sorts of things to kind of drive me on what I want.
Yeah.
But then, usually about halfway through, it kind of goes into a different direction, and then I'm just slapping stuff on, seeing what happens. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. You said colors. That's interesting, because, obviously that's a visual thing, but tell me a little more about that.
I mean, when it comes to thinking about what I want something to feel like, usually it's going to be, I think a lot in, like, kind of not so much, I want, like, maybe to sound like this song, or I want it to really bring out this instrument. Usually I'm thinking kind of like colors or textures, vibes. Like the last album I put out, one of the things that I was thinking about as I was mixing and producing that was just kind of a very clear vision that I can see across my kitchen to the alley during springtime. I wanted it to kind of sound like I don't know how to describe this, but like kind of the bright green that you see on trees kind of at the beginning of spring, right?
Yeah.
When they're starting to, get their leaves back and they're starting to bud out and all that. So that's kind of how I think about producing.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. Because I could definitely see that, but then how do you take something so visual like that? Like I can see the trees you're describing. We're so close to spring. I'm desperate for that green to come out. But like, how do you take a visual thing like that and then translate that into the auditory form?
I don't know. It's so weird for me, just because again, it's like that's just kind of how I think about sound in a way. So it's like, once I kind of, whenever I'm working on a project, I always think of kind of visual indicators of what I want it to sound like. So when I have that list written out of, okay, this, it just kind of makes sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's there's a cinematic quality to your work, and I think it's because there's so much going on there. I'm a huge movie nerd, and it's one of my favorite forms of art because it really takes multiple forms of art and compresses them into one, and that's how it tells a story. And I sense that in what you're doing, even when you're referencing some of the influences you mentioned, and like. I can see that in there, but then also your end product is so different than any of the artists that you just mentioned, So how did you settle on that final thing that you do? Because it is so, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, again, I'm thinking in cinematic terms. I'm thinking, like there's a little bit of like a Lynchian thing to it, or like, but it's very, you described it as art pop, I guess. And like, what does that mean? Like how, like it's not traditional, rhythmic music the way that you're going to hear on the top 40. It's like, it's a different kind of journey that you're taking people on.
Right. I think there was a point in time where I did try to kind of adhere to those conventional structures. And then me being the curious person I am, one day I was just kind of like, ooh, what would happen if maybe I like tried to take this to its extremes or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I've just been kind of going there ever since. And that got me to what I do now, I guess.
Yeah. Have you ever heard, there's an artist by the name, I think it's Tim Hecker, maybe, has a really interesting piece called Live Room, where it's one of those things where on the surface, you know, the casual listener might be like, what is this? Is just a bunch of noise. But it's one of those things where if you take the time to pay attention to it and really and engage with it, there's a journey there, right? And I think that's what I get out of your music, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely all about just journey, starting in one place and then ending in another. That's what I like.
Yeah. So let's go back. Obviously, you studied music, so music has been an important thing, you know, in your world. But like, how far back are we going? You know, let's get into the origin story a little bit. What was, you know, in your days growing up, what was music in your life at those points? You mentioned some things your parents were listening to. When did you really like engage with music yourself?
Probably it all kind of started at some point in time when I was a kid. I grew up in theater, and I was mainly focused on the play side of things. But then as I started getting older, I started getting really into musicals. And so to do that, you know, you have to sing. So I didn't really have any sort of vocal lessons or anything like that, but I started just, you know, trying to sort of teach myself how to sing properly without hurting myself.
Yeah.
And then once I started doing that, I started, you know, just making up little songs here and there around the house. And then eventually, by the time I was a teenager, it got to that point where, you know, I was feeling a lot of feelings and, you know, had to go somewhere to let them out. And that's where it really took off for me.
Any of that stuff from those teenage days surviving to this day as far
God,
as
no.
Okay. You never know. I mean, I did. I don't know if you know the artist Priscilla Sabb. She's a local singer-songwriter, and she once performed. I was watching her perform at Elephant Bar, and after the song was over, I was like, "That song was amazing." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I wrote that when I was like 15," and I was like, okay. Like, I know the stuff I wrote when I was 15. No one's seeing that, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely under lock and key.
Yeah.
We'll never see the light of day. If anyone even threatens to let it see the light of day, you know, they'll be put under.
Yep. All right. So you're singing, you're doing musical theater. At what point do you start clicking into the more technical side of things, the production side of it? Was that when you were in school, or was that earlier?
Probably around that teenage point. I had gotten my first laptop, and I discovered GarageBand and just had the time of my life making silly little things. And then from there, I was like, ooh, I could do something with this.
Yeah.
And that's where I really started to get into it.
Yeah, that's great. Have you done any producing for anyone outside of yourself, or do you just do your own work?
So far, no. I've gone back and forth about wanting to, like, you know, do it for other people, but I think I'm a little bit too much of a control freak. So
Yeah.
once I get that side of myself under control, then maybe. But
control freak is what you're. Yeah. I you know, I'm of similar mindset. I do love my control of things. I'm told in therapy though that apparently letting go is the way you deal with it. I don't know. It seems like nonsense to me, but you know, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I think part of it is just that so much of my life has been just outside of my control that anything that I can grab onto, I'm like, I'm not letting this go.
Yeah. So how much of your work has been about you know, personal stories, processing life, that sort of a thing, versus just like straight kind of separate art, or is there not even a line between the two?
I'd say maybe like 95% of it has just been things that have happened to me, processing things I've experienced. Maybe over the last couple of years, there's been a little bit more of detachment of just like, oh, I just want to do a thing and see what happens. Mm-hmm. But 95% of the time, it's usually something happened and then going back to teenage me of, okay, I have feelings, I need to write a song to process it. That's usually what it is. Yeah.
But the other thing you mentioned, kind of that more exploratory thing. Talk about that a little bit. Like, what are some paths that you see where you're like, I want to go explore that, and like, you know, that strictly like creative thing or technical thing?
Usually for something like that, it's just me playing around with my voice, or maybe playing around with a little piano riff I came up with and seeing what happens. Like, there's one song, or two actually, on the most recent album I put out back in 2024, where they were both sort of just, I hit record, did one thing, layered something on top of it, and just kept going. So usually if I'm playing around, it's somewhere along those lines.
Yeah. So you mentioned, voice, piano. What other instruments are you incorporating into your music?
So we've got voice, a bunch of keyboards, and then I'm a not so good bassist, but that's there. And then when I was in school, when I had access to a bunch of cool analog synths, those found their way into my work. But I've graduated. That's not in my realm anymore, so I do miss those. But I did love playing around with them. And then I've also been getting into kind of just programming drums and beats, those sorts of things. Not very good at it, but I do enjoy it.
Sure, yeah. Do you ever foresee an evolution where you incorporate maybe like other players into what you're doing, like for a live show even,
Eventually, that is something that I really want to explore.
Yeah.
I've kind of made a pact with myself that I will keep doing the, me and my keyboard thing until I feel like I've taken it as far as it can go. Once I feel like I've hit that wall, I'm going to just start bringing other people in.
Okay. So, like, there's an achievement you want to reach before you expand from there. Like, you want to hone in on that?
Exactly. I feel like I'm just getting to that point where I've really sort of locked in on, being a really good solo performer. So, I want to take that as, like, even further. And then once I feel I'm starting to get bored of it, then we're going to go to the next thing.
Yeah. Is that the sign when you start sensing that boredom? That's the time to move on to the next thing?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. How much of, like when you're preparing for your live shows, how much of the audience dynamic plays into your sound at that point? I mean, are you just up there playing, kind of the audience exists and whatever, or are you like they're there, you're feeding them something, they're feeding you something, there's a back and forth?
Yeah, it's definitely for me about the back and forth. I always hate playing shows where I feel like I have an audience in front of me that doesn't get me.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen super often, but I've had a couple shows where, like, I grew up in theater, so I'm very much someone who feeds off of that audience energy of, okay, you're giving me something, I'm going to give you something back, and we're going to have the most beautiful love affair. But when I don't have it, it kind of feels like I'm just performing to a wall, which I can do, like
Sure.
if I'm being paid to play somewhere, I'm going to do the best that I can, even if I'm just singing to the walls. But when I have that back and forth, and when it feels like the audience is kind of just hanging on to every single breath or like every single movement, whatever, that's what I live for.
Yeah. I love that idea of the show as sort of a love affair between you and the audience. That's a wonderful concept.
Yeah, it's like I've told many people in my life that it's kind of just like, performing for people's a very magical thing, and it almost feels like you're kind of in the middle of an orgy or something. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's very. It's intimate. You're exposing yourself, and I think, to an audience that allows itself to engage with really any kind of art form on the stage. I think particularly like an art form like yours that is so really emotional and intimate. I think that is then the audience then exposes themselves if they're truly choosing to engage with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that energy's got to be in the room, right?
Right. So any boyfriend I've ever had has just had to deal with the fact that every so often I'm gonna be with like 100 people at once. You just have to live with it.
Yeah. Is that like an opening line in the first date? Like, just so you know. Wow. All right. So, do you have any? I mean, I don't want to like dig into like too terrible of a story, but do you have any stories of when you've been performing on stage and the audience didn't get it or they didn't engage?
There was one show that I played a couple years ago. It was at a place out in Michigan City. It was a very lovely day. I had tons of fun, but part of it was just where the stage was set up. There was just tons of stuff happening, so it was hard to focus in general.
Yeah.
But I was just giving my best to these people, and it felt like I was getting nothing back. And I was just like, okay, I have to keep going.
Yeah.
But I got to keep going. I'm being paid for this.
Yep.
But yeah, like every time I was trying to do something, part of me was just like trying to focus on other things in my head just to keep myself engaged. Because
Yeah.
otherwise it felt like I was just singing just to sing.
Yeah.
And if I were doing that, I could just do it at home,
Yeah.
So
And I mean, but it also, I've had those moments on a microphone in front of a crowd where it's like you kind of almost get too much in your own head then, and you're like, but like, you guys got to give me something,
just a little bit.
I need a little energy here. So. Yeah. I mean, listen, I am not a performer. Like, I do some emceeing and some hosting and stuff. To take your art to and then put that out there to a live audience to take and potentially love but potentially hate, or I think even worse, maybe have neither feeling. That is an incredible thing that always impresses me about artists. Yeah, like kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back a little bit. Are you originally from the South Bend area? Did you come around here? Or?
No, I grew up in Hammond, which is like an hour and a half from South Bend, right
Okay.
along the border to Illinois.
Okay.
Lived there my whole life, and then I moved out here specifically for college, and then I kind of fell in love with the place, and now I'm stuck here.
Okay. All right. So Hammond, is that very like rural kind of, or?
It's, if you've ever driven to Chicago, say from like here or South Bend or wherever, it's the last city that you're going to pass through before you get to Chicago.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty kind of urban, suburban type vibe.
Okay.
Tons of factories along the lake, tons of pollution, tons of
Yeah.
noise, tons of trains.
Yeah. Probably a lot of, I don't know, traditional thinking perhaps with amongst the population. I mean, we live in this, we kind of have, you mentioned South Bend, kind of have this nice little bubble of art and love and everything. But we are kind of surrounded by a lot of rural areas,
Right.
And, attitudes that maybe are a little, I think out of date is the friendliest way to put them. So like, is that an area that is difficult to be around, or like?
Yes and no. Because like it's a fairly liberal area.
Okay.
But kind of like that more, I don't know how to describe it, but just sort of like suburban thinking, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Where there's not a ton of creativity, not tons of outlets for creativity. When I was living there wasn't that much of a music or art scene. That is changing now, which is cool.
Yeah.
But there was like one place, this art gallery, that I would go to sometimes, and they'd have like concerts and open mics, those sorts of things. And it was a good place. But the good side about it was that, again, right next to Chicago. So it was like hop on the South Shore, take a 20-minute train ride, and then you could be around all sorts of stuff. So that was
Yeah.
cool, at least.
Yeah. Well, because otherwise there is a very Midwestern thing where it's like you go to the factory, or you go to like you produce, you do the thing, and yeah, creativity is almost kind of like a frivolous
Right.
thing,
Yes.
And I think that's changed a bit in kind of the modern age that we're in. I remember, back in the day after the 2008 recession, so many people lost out doing that safe thing, going to the safe office job or the safe factory job. And I think after that, people realized, oh, maybe I am going to explore, woodworking or music or the thing that actually feeds me, because spiritually feeds me, because the safe thing wasn't actually all that safe anyway, because some assholes on Wall Street, messed around and ruined the whole thing for all of us.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I know like as creatively inclined people, it can be hard to grow up in a lot of areas of the Midwest where it's like, what are you doing making your art? You got to go over there and, get a job or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
it was definitely a challenge. And so when I came out here and all of a sudden there's like all these sorts of cool places in walking distance of my apartment, I'm like, oh, this is a whole new world, you know?
Yeah.
So that's been tons of fun.
Was there any pushback back home when you know, had this concept of I'm gonna go to school for an art, not for you know, I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a musician. Like, was there any pushback on that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially because when I had first went off to college, I was fully intent on being a theater student and getting my degree in acting and doing that for the rest of my life. And that was a challenge enough as is.
Yeah.
Because my mother, you know, she really wanted me to go into her line of work, you know, become an insurance agent, take over her business someday when she decides to retire.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm her only child, so that was her one chance.
Yeah.
And, you know, I ruined it. But then by the time I decided, you know what, I'm going to switch to music, this is going to be my thing. I think part of it was just she'd already gone through enough of the shock the first time around, but there was still like a little bit of a, you sure you don't want to like come back home, do the insurance thing? But you know, here we are now.
Yeah. What was it that put your eyes on South Bend as the area to go to?
I wanted to get far away from home, but like not so far that it would take like tons of coordination just to get back home. Mm-hmm. So I do like being, you know, just hour and a half away.
Yeah.
That's been nice.
Definitely, yeah. Well, and you mentioned you got here, you know, and like you enjoyed the place. What was it that kept you, you know, in South Bend?
Just all this, like, kind of just the vibe of it in general, where you get a ton of like larger city amenities in this sort of smaller place.
Yeah.
Where it feels large enough in the sense that you have tons of stuff that you can go do and things that you can go see, but not so large that it feels overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something nice about, I was out at a show at the Rocky Button last night, and there's something nice about, one, having spaces to go that have so much creativity happening. You know, I mean, I think last night I saw a DJ. I saw Jesus rap, and then I saw a pop punk band, Shark Sugar, perform. Like all in one event, right? Like I went to one place and got all these different things, and then so yeah, you get that variety of art and things to do. But then also we walked in there, and I ran into, I don't know, half a dozen people that I knew because it's still a small area, right? It's like a community camaraderie kind of a thing.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely very nice.
How do you feel about the local music community in general?
I think it's great. I didn't get to have that experience back in my hometown, so being somewhere where there is this just really talented local music community, that it's just really cool to me.
Yeah. Do you have any like favorites as far as like just when you're not working, you're just out there like I want to go check out some cool art, some cool music, whatever, like any favorites that you have out there? Putting you on the spot, I know. Can't. Anyone you leave out is not offended by this. We're just picking, you know, points.
Anytime that I happen upon a show and I see spaceships on the lineup, I get really excited.
There we go. Yep. Gotta love some spaceships. Yeah. Not enough spaceship shows, honestly.
Yeah, we need more of that.
Yeah, you hear that, Nat? What else are you doing out and about in the area? If you're not catching music, what other fun things are out there for you?
At this point, that's kind of like the one thing that gets me out the house.
Is it?
Because otherwise it's like, okay, I'm either at work or I'm at home chilling with my cat.
Yeah.
But especially when it's nice out, I do love going out on a little walk, you know. I'm a bit of an architecture nerd. So,
okay.
I live kind of like right outside downtown in that area with all the old houses.
Yeah.
So I love walking around, admiring all the pretty architecture, you know, those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous area. Do you ever like drive up to any of the cities in Michigan and check out any of the architecture in those places?
I would love to.
Yeah.
I just don't really, you know, drive up to Michigan all that much.
Yeah.
I think this is probably, not counting work-related things, this is probably like the third time that I've been up in Michigan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And how long have you been in South Bend?
9 years, I think.
All right. We clearly have to do some work to draw you across the border a little bit more. There's fun things happening in Niles. I just want you to know we've got some good things happening here.
Yeah,
so.
I've never been to downtown Niles
Really?
before, so I was walking around for a little bit when I parked, and I was like, wow, this is so pretty. How did I not know this existed?
Yeah. Did you see the space across the street there, that little plaza space? Yeah. It's a fun spot. We do, so I am... As of this recording, probably, or as of this coming out, will probably be formerly, but I'm on a board called Niles Main Street. And up until I guess it's February, so 2 months ago, I was the chair of the board. And we do a lot to like keep this downtown area vibrant. And that space over there, it's called The Node. It's one of those things, there used to be a street that used to go straight through. And then during COVID, it was kind of a stopgap measure so people could have a place to gather safely. You know, we put in a fire pit. People could order from one of the restaurants, go down there, hang out safely, and eat. And it became kind of a beloved community thing that we made it permanent. And so now it's a permanent plaza, and you know they're already scheduling live music there for this coming spring and summer. So yeah, there'll be fun stuff happening there all summer long. It's really fun up here. And we have a social district, so if you enjoy an adult beverage, you can grab one at one of the local places and carry it through downtown within the bounds, or grab a bite to eat, some ice cream from the ice cream shop. It's just a really fun vibe down here.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to make it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll let you know when there's some good music going on. So yeah,
all right.
It's a good time. So, but yeah. So wait, again, are you a beach person at all? We're right, Lake Michigan's right there. So
I do love the beach.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager and I got in my first car, and I was finally able to drive on my own. My favorite thing to do was because there's a beach in Hammond. I don't really like Hammond's beach, but the town right over, Whiting, they have a really gorgeous beach.
Yeah.
Even though it's right next to the massive BP oil refinery, it's a very pretty beach.
Yeah,
and,
just don't look that direction.
Right, exactly. Just look the other way. And my favorite thing to do was to just like drive up to their beach at night and just kind of slowly drive through the parking lot because you couldn't park after a certain time.
Yeah.
But I just drive very slowly with the windows down and just, listen to the waves crashing and all that.
It is the best. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for the people that aren't from this area, I mean, Lake Michigan, it's like staring at the ocean, right? You can't see the end of it, so it's just you're staring out at this endless horizon, and your mind goes places. And I grew up in a town called Bridgman, which is a little further into Michigan, little tiny town, like 1,000 or so people. But we have Waco Beach, which is one of my favorite beaches in the area, and it's that same thing. You just go down there and you can lose yourself in the sights and the sounds and the smells, and whether it's winter or summer, it's highly recommended. All right, so I think I was poking through your Bandcamp a little bit, and I think the last release I saw was 2024. Does that sound right?
Yes.
We got anything new in the works coming down the line?
I'm working on new stuff. I start recording next week, which I'm excited for.
Okay.
But I've written a ton of songs, and I'm just really excited to see what happens with them. It was tricky because this happens every time I finish a project where I'm just convinced that I'm never going to write something ever again.
Yeah.
And it feels like I'm forcing something to come out. But then, a bunch of bad stuff happened. I went through a breakup in December. So, those songs came.
Yeah. Is that the cycle for you every time where it's like you finish like a product, I hate the term product, but you finish a project, let's say that, and the coffers are just drained and they've got to kind of fill back up. Hopefully not always through a terrible experience, but through life experience or just energy refreshing, that sort of a thing.
Every time. The first thing that I finished and publicly put out back in 2020, that was a little different just because as I was working on that, I already had other things that were were kind of circulating in my mind. So I kind of just went right from that first project into the next one.
Yeah.
But after everything after that, it's just been, I feel so drained after I finished, happy and excited, but very, very drained. I don't want to think about music for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then maybe 2 months go by and I start thinking I'd love to work on something again, but I don't have anything to work on. And then I sit down, try to write a song, hate it, throw it out. And then that's kind of the cycle for maybe 6 months until something happens.
Yeah. That's such a big part of the creative process where you go through so much stuff that you hate or you think is unworthy or I don't know, like you have to. I had this saying. It's like something along the lines of you got to dig through the dirt to get to the treasure. You know,
Exactly.
Because like you're gonna make so much. I just came out of this class before you arrived. I'm taking a screenwriting class right now. We're working on these treatments, and it's just funny how bad the ideas are when they start, but you have to have those bad ideas to get to the good idea, you know?
Exactly. And then like sometimes, you'll be so far removed from it and then you find whatever you were working on before and you look at it and you're like, this wasn't even so bad. What was I getting so worked up over?
Yep. Got to have some distance from it a little bit, or sometimes you have to have someone else take a look at it and hear it from their perspective, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you get around to creating an album, is it a matter of you had like a very specific theme or idea or something you wanted to say with it, something you wanted to explore, or is it a matter of, okay, I have happened to create 12 songs, so now it's time to make the album? Like, what's that?
So it starts just with coming up with a bunch of songs, and then once I feel like I have a good amount to work through, then I kind of start looking at them and see, okay, what are the themes that are unifying it? Thinking back to the sort of visual ideas that I see when I'm playing those songs.
Yeah.
And then from there, once I have kind of those themes and then the sort of visual idea, then from there I can say, okay, I know what this is going to be. Let me get to work. And I go from there.
Nice. When you talk about themes, are we talking strictly the more like esoteric themes? Or are we talking about sometimes the lyrical themes as well, the story, or is it both?
Both, yeah. Kind of lyrical vibes, but also just sort of what vibes do I pick up thinking about these songs? What type of person would this be? And then that especially ties into like when it comes time to coming up for visuals for it with like the artwork and, music videos, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's always funny when the woman that I collaborate on the visuals with, her name's Melanie, she's my best friend. And bless her heart, because she has to go through, all the things that I throw at her.
Sure, yeah.
Where, I'll send her documents of like, okay, so this is what I'm thinking for the artwork, and it's just like pictures of plants and like vintage leather gay porn, and she has to, somehow come up with how are we going to tie this all together?
Yeah.
But, she does somehow.
That's amazing. Yeah. Like what is in this? What are they trying to show me in this? Yeah. That's great. So you just said something though that was caught my ear. You said, what kind of person would this be? What does that mean exactly when you're in reference to like the art themes and whatnot?
Usually sometimes when it comes to songs, I'll think of it kind of like as there's a character with it.
Yeah.
So, when I'm trying to come up with stuff, I'll think of, what type of character would this be? What have they lived through? Usually, of course, there's elements of me in that, but, that's kind of like one of the other things that'll drive me into figuring out what the vibe is.
Yeah. All right. So, with the artwork and the videos, Melanie, you said?
Yes.
Is that about sending her, sort of the, almost like a mood board, I guess? Is that where you leave that and then Melanie takes care of the rest of it? Or are you more hands-on in that process of the artwork, of the videos?
Yeah, I send it off to her and then we just bounce ideas back and forth off of each other until eventually we come up with some sort of thing.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
I like being involved in everything. So,
Yeah.
again, control freak.
Yeah, no, I can relate. Believe me. So, yeah. All right. So, got a new album, potentially down the line. Do we have any kind of a timeline on that? Or when can people expect the new Queer Friday?
Hopefully start of next year.
Okay. All right.
I feel like I always try to give myself deadlines and then those deadlines fall out the window. So, don't hold me to it.
Sure, yeah. We're making no promises here, people.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the very least, before the end of the decade, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, we got some time. Yeah. All right. Do you do any other? Do you work on any other projects? Any collaborations? Do you work with any other bands, or
Not at the moment. I did do kind of like my first collaboration. What year was that? 2024. With this artist out in Kansas City. Their name's Otterlope. It was so much fun. I
Yeah.
never worked with someone in that way before. So I'd like to do more of that eventually, probably once I finish with whatever this project turns into.
Yeah, definitely. There's, you know, creative collaboration can be so hard, but it can be so fulfilling too. Like when you find someone that gets you, and where you can like create something together. I don't know. There's something very magical about it. It really is though, like a relationship. I mean,
Exactly.
You know, you're exposing yourself as deeply as a romantic relationship,
Right.
You know, sometimes even more. I think,
Right.
honestly, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's always both intimidating and a little tough, but also like very fulfilling when you can find that, you know, sort of thing, that energy.
Right. Once you find that collaborator that you just click with, it's magical.
Yeah, for sure. What about, have you ever done or have any interest in doing like film scoring? I could definitely see that being something that fits with, you know, the landscape you create. It is so, like, you keep mentioning visual things, and I think about when I listen to your music, I see stuff, and so like it feels like film would be a good match for your work.
I've thought about that before.
Yeah.
But I am also a very big procrastinator. So
Aren't we all? That's like part of creative, right? Yeah.
so the thought of like having something that's dependent on me making things and then knowing that I'm going to have those days where I'm like, I don't want to get up and sit at my keyboard. I don't want to do
Yeah.
it. Don't make me.
Yeah.
So maybe someday further down the line, but
Yeah.
it's definitely something I've thought about before.
Yeah, I would love to see it. Would love to see it. Just putting that out there. So, all right. So we've got a new album coming sometime this decade.
Yep, hopefully.
So we've got that. Anything else in the plans for what's in the plans for this year at least? I mean, obviously you're going into the studio, but what else is in the works for you right now?
I don't really have much else at the moment. I'd love to hopefully play some shows this year.
Yeah.
I don't think I've done that since August of last year.
Okay.
So it's been a little bit.
All right.
But
Was your last show Fringe Fest?
it was, yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So yeah, it's been a bit.
It has been a bit. We got to get you back out there.
Yeah.
We got to do it. So yeah, everyone, call up Queerfather. They're looking
Yeah.
for some.
Yeah,
Let's
book me.
let's get this thing going. All right. So maybe some shows. We'll see. We'll do the recording. What else is going on in your world this year?
That's basically it for music right now. I was hoping at first, last year I was hoping to do like a re-record of some of the songs on the first thing that I put out back in 2020.
Yeah.
But then that didn't pan out. So maybe that'll happen this year. Maybe, hopefully at some point, because I would love to explore that, but don't know when that's going to happen.
So what's the motivation there? Is it like you've learned things and so you would do things better, or there's things you want to change? Like, why would you go back and alter that work?
I feel like a lot of the songs have kind of come to life more after being played live, as well as me, just learning more things.
Yeah.
So I want that to be able to exist on its own as kind of like a snapshot of where I was at that point in time, but also having another version that's more reflective of how I would visit those songs now.
Sure. Yeah. I was just talking about this with the Early, and they just had a new single come out. And the discussion was basically that they kind of are now playing a lot of songs out before they choose to record them, because that's that sort of final stage of evolution for it. They're sort of finding the last hints of that song out there in front of an audience, performing it live.
Yeah, definitely. I've done that a few times myself.
Yeah.
I always feel kind of weird about it though, because I don't know, I feel so protective of the songs almost, that the thought of playing them without having even gotten around to recording them yet feels weird to me.
Yeah.
But it definitely does kind of influence how the song then ends up turning out, because then, there's a level of spontaneity when you're playing live that you don't necessarily get in the studio.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Feeling that energy in the room and rolling with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, all right. So we've got some music coming, hopefully some live shows. Anything else you want to tell the people out there before we sign off? I mean, besides obviously visit the Queer Father Bandcamp, link in the show notes,
Yeah.
Give musicians your money, as we always say.
Yeah, you stole my pitch.
It's all right, we'll pitch it over and over again till the people get it, Yeah.
Yeah, buy my music. Book me.
There you go.
Even if you just want me to, jump off the stage and give people hugs, book me.
You know what? We need more of that in the world. We really do. So, all right. Well, Queer Father, thanks for hanging out. Looking forward to everything coming new this year, this decade. Keep us posted on what you're doing.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
For sure. All right. Take care. You have been listening to Anywhere the Needle Drops from Red Chuck Productions. Keep up on new episodes of this show, our live events and various creations and other happenings over at redchuckproductions.com or by following us on social media at Red Chuck Productions. Special thanks to Hero Jr. for our theme music. You can check them out over at herojuniormusic.com. That is Hero, Hero, Junior, JR, music.com. A big shout out to Paul Clemson and Theory One Productions for handling sound duties and so much more. Check out their magic over at theory1productions.com. And a big thank you to Earthworks Audio for outfitting the Red Chuck studio. See their microphones and their other products over at earthworksaudio.com. Be sure to support all of our guests by visiting their websites, social media, clicking that subscribe button, seeing them live, and checking out their merch stores. Give musicians and artists your money. We'll be back with the next episode. Until then, thank you for your time. Here's to life.